most of the trade is at sea. America controls 11 aircraft carriers, and it is a way better empire that communist countries will ever be. Because the way it does colonialism is mutually beneficial, is through trade. So it uplifts both and also it spends money to have colonies. Whereas if the communist bloc or Islam as colonies, they basically put a dictator in place and extract all the resources. And they don't help each other. So that's why the United States as allies, like those dictatorship, they coordinate on paper, but rarely intervene to save each other. I mean, and when it comes to colonialism and empire, I don't think uh, countries have many choices. So in the past was either you fall under the British Empire or the French. Now the way I see it is there are three options. One is the Islamic bloc, and by the way, not all Muslim majority country fall into this bloc. For example, Azerbaijan, Indonesia, I think they fall more into the Western bloc. Then you have the United States bloc, which is Europe, Japan, South Korea, all the countries that basically the United States freed, or either during the Second World War or the Cold War. And then you have the communist bloc, the Eastern bloc, China, Russia, and all their proxy. So yeah, I don't think you have a choice to be neutral. You either fall under one of those three kind of sphere of influences, and if you fall under the American sphere of influence, you have prosperity. If you fall under the communist sphere of influence, then to basically save and change that, then you need to change the top. So you need to just change the elite and the dictator, and then people get freed. And if you fall under the Islamic sphere of influence, then it's way harder because once it gets entrenched, you need to change the people. That's at the base. It's not just the dictator, but it's also very hard to build anything on top of that system. So I want to hear other opinions on the topic.
So I'll just quickly go over the way I view it. I think that when we're talking about imperialism or colonialism, I think there is no empires right now. The era of empires is over, and there's only two groups of people, three groups of people who are trying to, maybe two, yeah, are trying to bring it back. And influence doesn't make you an empire, right?
Yeah, but
Influence just
what
makes.
do you define empire?
Okay, yeah, I'm going. That's what I was going to say. Talk about that's exactly what I was about to say before you interrupted me. But let me just. What was I going to say? Oh yeah. So empire is basically the opposite of having a nation state. That's why we created the concept of a nation state as an anti-imperial project. And America, it actually started with America. It actually started with the foundation of America. That's why I consider America to be an anti-imperialist project. This is why I consider it funny when people like consider America to be an empire. America is the least imperialist thing ever. It's a basically the the thing that the most effective way to end empires was America, right? And I'll explain why. So empire is when you have a group of people who have some citizens who are the governance or the ruling body represents those citizens, but then those citizens are few. They're basically in the capital or close to it, and every all the other land that this empire controls is being controlled without the vote or the will of the people in those lands being taken into consideration. And the governing body is not a reflection of any of those groups of people. It's only a reflection of the citizens in the capital or close to the capital. So empire is when you're ruling over land with people that you do not represent, that you're not a reflection of them, and they have no say in how you govern them. That's an empire, right? A nation state, a nation state, on the other hand, is when you have a nation, which is a group of people within a geographical area that have some characteristics that bonds them together. So that's a nation. And the state is a governing body for that nation that is a reflection of that nation and represents that nation and rules for that nation, right? So, and it serves that nation. That's what a nation state is. So, the idea of a nation state and an empire are basically completely the opposite of each other. And the idea of a nation state started at, I mean, at first it started in the French Revolution, but it was actually put in place by the American Revolution. Like it was first put into practice by the American Revolution, right? And the American Revolution actually put those ideas in place effectively in America for the first time. And then it ended up being a really effective, a really good project. And America, as a project of these ideas, ended up growing and growing and growing. And then after World War II, the American model dominated the West. And after the Cold War, it dominated the entire planet. So this whole idea of a nation state model that America tested, it works so well that now is basically the governing model everywhere that we have land, except maybe the South Pole. Okay, but almost everywhere that we have land, we're now using the American model to govern the idea of a nation state. So basically, everywhere that we was going from the imperial model to the nation state model was following the America's model of governing to create nation states. Like we talk about America and other nation states without remembering that all nation states are nation states because America became a nation state. That like the idea of a nation state started with America. The idea of nationalism like started with America. Like all of this has started with America, right? And then it works. So the fall of empires all around the world happened because America proved that this is a model that works. And then now we forgot what how empires used to operate, which is they come, they invade, they rule over you, and then there's nothing you could do about it. Honestly, it was good for its time. I'm not trashing the idea of an empire. I mean, if you weren't part of an empire, you were barbarians. It would be better for you to be part of an empire than be barbarians. So it was a model that worked for its time, but obviously now the nation state model works a lot better. That what we have right now is not empire. What we have right now is some nation states become so rich, become so influential that everybody is affected by them and everybody wants to trade with them. Everybody wants to. So America is very influential, not just because of its technology, not because of its science, not just because of its economy, not because of its superior culture that the whole world is affected by it, but also because of its consumers, its purchasing power of its citizens. Everybody wants to sell to them. They have money, they have buy. People want to produce to sell to Americans. The fact that America has so many customers that want to buy other people's products, that is not imperialism because people are lining up to sell to them. They're not forcing anything on you. People are going to them. Okay, people, these are Americans with a lot of money. They want to buy. Other people are producing. They want to sell it to Americans. They're asking America for access to their market. This is not imperialism. This is you just being so good at building your economy that everybody is lining up for the purchasing power of your citizens. So when people are voluntarily asking for access to your market, for access to the security that comes from your military, imperialism is that we come to you, we force you, and there's nothing you could do about it. It's not. This is the other way around. This is people ask, like for example, Philippines and Vietnam go to America, say like, can you bring your military here so that China doesn't bully us? That is not imperialism. That's just a mutual agreement. That's a win-win agreement between two independent nation states. That's how I see it.
Yeah, we have just to recap a bit the two different. For you, an empire is when few in a central place control all the periphery and it's authoritarian. And the nation state is basically a democratic
No, no, there's the most important element is that they rule over it
consent.
without representing them, without representing them. That's the most important part. Like their vote doesn't count. Like they have no say. These people they are being ruled by people who are governing in a way that you have no say in,
Yeah.
right? So, for example, the Roman Empire, the citizens of Rome have a say in how Rome as an empire governs, okay? But the citizens of Jerusalem, for example, the people in Jerusalem who are being ruled by Rome, the Roman Empire, they have no say. This Roman citizens have a say. So, the people in Jerusalem are being ruled by Rome, but they have no say in how Rome operates, how it does its politics. That's empire.
Yeah, for me, the two definitions, like one is control over the road, the trade route. The other one is control over the land. So a nation controls the land, the empire controls the trade. So the you have debts to pay in dollars, and there is the petrodollar that was a policy, and there were a lot of coup d'etat of basically communist regimes that appeared in the Latin America. I'm not against any of those things, but it was both willing and unwilling, so done by force, and yeah, so it's both.
So just for last point, the only message I want to mention is that having control doesn't mean that you're an empire, because control, so having control could mean because you did your job so well that now you have more economic power, more military power. That means that you have more control. That is not empire if you are not going to use the power that you have and the control that you have to do anything against the will of the people who you don't represent. And the only forms of empires that we have today is the two attempts at empire by Putin and by Islamist. Okay, so we have the nation state model dominant all around the world, and there are two groups of people who are trying to bring empire back. Not even the CCP is trying to bring empire back, even though I'm against them. I want the United States to win against the CCP, but I think the only two people who want to bring back empire is one Putin, and more dangerously Islam. The reason why more dangerous is Islam is because Putin wants to have empire only around his area, like over Eastern Europe and the former Soviet states. But Islam wants to have an empire that basically takes over the entire planet. That's why that's the most dangerous idea out there. All right. So who's next?
Next, we have Shauna.
Okay. Can you guys hear me? Okay, yeah, I think you can. Okay. Two very, very quick things. I was watching Glenn Beck this morning, and he talked about Russia came out to Trump and said, "We didn't leave the dollar left you." And the Cuban Missile Crisis was basically hands off a Turkey. And so he speculated that perhaps this was Russia trying to say something along the lines of, maybe hands off of Ukraine, let us take Ukraine, and then we'll play ball. So that was his speculation. I'd be curious your thoughts about that. Then the other quick question, or I don't know, statement, question, both, is Fuentes is Democrat posting. And what that means is he's basically telling people to either not vote or to vote for Democrats because it's better because reasons. And he's not even like hiding it anymore. And what I'm curious about is, do you think in the future, possibly, you could see an alliance forming between the white nationalists and the Islamists inside the Democratic Party, which seems crazy right now, but it wouldn't take that much for those alliances. And the Democrat Party in the United States is the oldest party. It's changed its shape multiple times. So I'd be curious what you think of that, if that's a possibility for that to form in a real coherent way, an Arab or like a Muslim jihadi communist, the Islamo commies forming with the Wignats. Um,
Yeah,
yeah. Yeah, if that could
yeah.
happen
That
within the Democratic Party, whereas the Christian right and I mean the Christian right and the actual Christian right, and the Jews and other religious minorities would form within the Republican. I'd be curious what happens.
no, no, that's great. I mean, when it comes to Ukraine, some people, again, let me know what you think about it. Some people's understanding is that has already been, it's already the direction that we're going. Like United States is going to, there are a lot of analysts in the United States who think that Russia is one way or another going to have Ukraine and even more countries in Eastern Europe at some point. Like their calculation, for some reason that I don't know, is that this is inevitable. It's going to happen. We can slow it down, and maybe we should, because we have to make Russia's job more difficult. But at some point, it will happen. And United States could help the European countries by by selling weapons to European countries so that they could give it to Ukraine. But it's not like, at some point United States has to be like, well, this is a lost cause. This is not my neighborhood, and we're gonna have an agreement with Putin, with Russia, with Russia, that I'll basically allow this to happen. I mean, I will still keep selling weapons to Europe, but I'm not going to participate in myself directly in defending Ukraine. And I get out of your neighborhood, you get out of my neighborhood.
I fear that East Ukraine, at the very least, will be it's looking like it's gonna be a sacrificial lamb, which I don't like that. I'm not happy about that. I'm not
Yeah.
saying that's good, but that's what it's looking like to me. But I
But go
think
on.
that's
Sorry, I thought.
no, no, that's it. That's what that
Mm.
was that on the Ukraine thing. I do think it's probably gonna end up being
So,
that way, some restructuring going on there.
so from Trump's perspective, okay, when did Europe come and provide, like in the past couple of years, Europe hasn't been contributing to America, like from Trump's perspective, to America's security, and United States is basically coming in and using its resources to protect Europe. Europe is now getting closer and closer to China. Like the main adversary of United States is not Russia, it's China, and Europe is getting closer to China. And like, okay, then why would I? If my security, which is mostly China, challenged by China, is not a priority for Europe, then from American perspective, why should I then make Europe's security challenges, which is Russia, my priority? If they don't care, if they're getting closer to my main to China, then I'm not even getting. I like, from American perspective, you might think like, I'm not even getting as close to Putin as they're getting close to the CCP.
The Canadian guy basically said that we should lean into China. He blatantly said that, and
Right. So
and so I
so so from an American perspective, it's like, okay, then you could go fuck off. I'm gonna go focus on my security. Good luck with Russia, right? That's from an
yeah.
American perspective.
I mean, but
Yeah, okay.
they've always seen us as their peasant stock that should just provide security for them. They've always seen
Yep,
us
yeah,
that way. So
this is how, yeah, they make fun of Americans. They have like a superiority complex. They're like, "Oh my god, look at these uncivilized barbaric Americans with their
Armin, you're
guns."
spewing
With oh,
nonsense.
no, I'm
I
not.
need to
You don't know what you're
interrupt
talking
you.
about. You
You
interrupt.
know,
You
yeah,
don't
yeah,
you Be quiet. Be quiet. Let me finish.
yeah. Go
Be
on.
quiet. Let me finish. Yes. What was I saying? Like, this is like, it's really not good when you guys interrupt me, guys. Like stop it. What was I saying? So yeah, the Europeans have this. I Yeah. By the way, when you say like, the worst way to try to convince somebody of your opinion is to say like, you're spewing nonsense. Like, this is a very immature, fucked up way of trying to correct somebody. This is basically guaranteeing that your points are not going to be taken into account, because what you're signaling to the other side is that you're butthurt and you're emotional and you're not actually thinking logically. So maybe if you have some good points, try to be a little bit more respectful instead of actually attacking the person by being this butthurt when you're listening to someone's opinion. Okay. And it's interesting that, because even if I'm wrong about this, what I'm saying is the same position of some many people, many analysts that have dedicated their entire lives to study this, and they're experts at this field. And I'm reflecting what they're saying. I'm not saying that makes me correct, but to just dismiss it as nonsense is nonsense. Yeah. So really quickly, from many European perspective, is that they see themselves as more civilized, more cultured, superior to Americans, but yet at the same time they're benefiting from the leeching off America's military. They're benefiting from the security that America provides, without contributing as much to the global security that America is providing around Europe. So, and given that they're getting closer to China, it does make sense for it does make sense for the Americans to focus more as on what's there in their best interest, not to completely abandon the Europeans. I mean, Europeans could focus, like, encourage the Europeans to spend more on their military, and if they want advanced American military weaponry, they could come buy it, right? But I think this is actually what Trump is doing to Europe is actually in the benefit of Europe as well, because actually you could see that their spending on their military has been increasing ever since that Trump and JD Vance and Pete Hegseth have signaled to Europeans that they need to actually contribute a lot more to their military. So this is good for Europe to actually basically Europe needs to again, this is going to be very difficult because a lot of the increased military spending that Europe needs to do requires them to spend less on their welfare, but they have made their citizens addicted to welfare. It's really hard, like their citizens are not going to tolerate. This is the problem with being a welfare state. Once you realize that this model doesn't work, you can't get off of it because your citizens have become addicted to it. So now, even if you want to spend a lot more on your military, then you really can't as much as you should be because your citizens will not tolerate it. I mean, I do agree. Like, by the way, this doesn't, I don't want to generalize all European countries because, like, Poland, for example, very proud of Poland, doing a really good job. And I'm pretty sure there are some exceptions. Germany is become waking up. France is horrible. But yes, Ger- but again, so what was your second question, Shana?
Oh, I just really, really quick because I know we gotta get on it. Fuentes is Democrat posting, and so,
Oh yeah.
the political alliance between the white nationalists is the Islamic commies. Like, open no, like,
Yeah,
more
so
open.
yeah, I can see I can see that happen. Here's an interesting thing. I used to when I used to listen to Nick Fuentes more, he wanted this union to happen so much more earlier, but he said that his expectation was more people on the left to stop with the immigration. Okay, but that's that. So here's the thing. This is why Jew hatred is such a unifying factor. Okay, they I agree with you that we're moving in that direction. I think we're going to see the Jew hatred is going to be a major deciding factor between who's on what side, right? So instead of, I feel like the world is moving towards a direction where we don't have left versus right, we have Jew haters versus non-Jew haters. That's the division that we're moving in that direction.
I
Okay. Uh,
actually agree. I think it started with
yeah.
October 7th.
Yes, yes. And I think we're going to have like Nick Fuentes, right leaning people on, and then leftists and Marxists on one side, and then Islamists, all of them on that side, and everybody else on this other side, right? And I think we're going to see them slowly becoming their own political thing. But the main thing that is it's not going to be perfect. Just like, I don't know, Sunnis and Shias unite over the Jew hatred, right? Sometimes they get reminded that, oh, we actually hate each other as well, and start killing each other as well. Like, it's not going to be a perfect union, but but they manage to sometimes work with each other over the Palestinian cause and Jew hatred. But sometimes it's not like they're going to completely put their differences aside. But yes, I think that some sort of a union like that is I mean, this has happened off again and again and again. It's not like this is happening for the first time, right? We
Well, they
expect
also
this is how
they
Iran fell as a country. Go on.
It's not I also wanted to mention just really, really quickly, it's not just they're unified under Jew hatred, that is one that's obviously the dominant, but they also both believe in a pan-national identity. In the case of Fuentes, sometimes it's Catholic, sometimes it's pan-European. He will coordinate with people like Richard Spencer, who believes in a pan-European identity. He doesn't believe he believes all white people are the same, essentially. But yeah, so Richard Spencer and Fuentes kind of unify under this like side of pan identities, and that's the other unifying factor. Whereas I think on the right, we believe in ethnic and national identities that they exist, like maybe and religious identities. They exist.
I'm actually noticing that Nick Fuentes is seeming. This is what I was trying to get to. He seems to be wanting to put white nationalism aside and just focus on Jew hatred. Okay, to me that's what it seems like.
But he's still playing ball with people like Richard
I
Spencer, who's
know.
an open white nationalist. I mean, he's still having him on his show.
I know, but he's not going. It seems like he doesn't want to focus on that. Like he's wanting to downplay that. I saw him mentioning that the white nationalist cause has been taken by a whole bunch of retards, as he put it. So he thinks it's a lost cause. But I think why he's putting it aside is a different reason. Let me go back to what I was saying, so you see why I think he's going into this direction, right? So much earlier, like a couple of months ago, he came out and said that we could work with the leftists against Israel and Jewish influence if they give up on mass migration, right? But the thing is that he doesn't understand that that's their main winning card. Like the leftists, the far leftists, they get to change their votes in their direction by demographically engineering the population by having migrants in to come vote in their favor. Like that is their main asset. Why would they give up on their main weapon? So that's how they win. And white nationalists, they don't have a chance against that, because they're, when it comes to demographics, white nationalists are like, oh, white women have more babies, white women please have more babies, white women you have to have more babies. Yeah,
with
that's not gonna work.
white
Yes,
men
but
specifically.
yeah, with white men, yeah, have more baby, get married early and have more kids. Yep, okay, keep saying that. Let's see how much that's going to change the
Well, no,
demographics.
no,
That's
white
not
women
but
are still having babies, but they're just not necessarily having them only exclusively with white men.
but I'm just saying that them trying to create more white babies by advertising for it, that has never worked anywhere. Okay, uh, telling people to have more babies is not going to make them have more babies. It's just not going to work. Okay, but the left has a secret weapon. Like, we don't even need to tell our people to have more babies. We'll just open the door to people who we promise free shit from, from the hard work that other people are doing, and tell, once they get in, we're like, oh, we let you in, vote for us, because this is what we did for you. We're going to give you more free shit if you vote for us. So this is like a winning strategy. You don't need to have more babies. You just allow people in, right? So they're not going to give up on that. And Nick Fuentes, I think, realized that there is no winning this. Okay, like Trump has failed him, in his opinion, when it comes to stopping migration, and maybe this is a losing cause. And he might think, okay, the white replacement, as he calls it, is going to happen, and there's no stopping it. So let's just focus on fighting Jews and Israel. That seems to be popular right now. Like, fighting migration is not going to win us anything. Like, they're winning. It's over. So let's just get united with the Muslims and the leftists and everybody else who is focusing on the greater threat of all, more than migration, which is Israel itself, Zionism, global Zionism. Let's just focus. That seems to be a winning cause. Let's just focus on that. And I'm kidding you not. Like, it's not just leftists. He's completely willing to now work and unite with Islamists. He says this is one of the reasons why he's defending the Islamic Republic. He's aggressively right now defending the Islamic Republic and all other Islamic countries, because his priority, like ethnicity, race is now like not a big priority for him. Like, he's talking about Arabs as an ally, as a he like his latest show, he was talking about Arabs as a major ally to them against Israel. And he wants to support the Islamic Republic and Arab countries and Islamic countries. So yeah, ethnicity and race, not that big of a deal for him anymore. He wants to, him and many other people. I mean, you could look at Islamic countries, for example. They keep praising Nick Fuentes. They keep praising Tucker Carlson. So the feeling is mutual. Like, the Jew haters are falling in love with each other, and the bond is real. And I think we're moving in that direction.
My other question though is, do you think that they could potentially take over the Democratic Party like Trump changed the Republican Party? It's not the 90s Republican Party.
Mm.
I have to
Yeah, I
insist that we
mean,
move on soon, so just really
yeah,
Okay,
let's
quickly.
sorry.
move on. Yeah, I
Sorry.
don't know, but it is possible, because I mean, like, it has happened before, right? So yeah, it might be under the umbrella of the Democratic Party. I mean, it's more likely for that to happen than it happening under the umbrella of the Republican Party. So yeah, sure, why not?
Okay.
But yeah,
Right. Next on the list, I have Michael.
I'm here. Can anyone hear me?
yes.
Cool. Okay. Appreciate it. Good morning, Armin, or good afternoon, wherever you're at. Um, I kind of want to add in a little bit. I want to rewind a little bit back to when you talked about how Europe is falling into the sphere of China's influence, and I also want to add in, for example, like, so I'm gonna like divulge a little bit in this. So I'll make it short. So like, I'm a gun owner here in the U.S. and actually here in the States, for what I know, many European gun manufacturers have signed contracts with many American law enforcement is here in the States. Also, for example, HK, they're developing the HK 416, which is similar to an AR-15. I also want to emphasize a little bit. What I mean is, so Europe, the European Union, has had renegotiated, or at least from what I know, has been renegotiating its trade deal with China. And let's just say it's not in good standing because Europe, well, many European countries have had a trade deficit with China where they imported more Chinese products than China buying more European products. And so I feel like that the Europeans are worried about that. I wouldn't be fooled by the headlines. And I would also add that the American and European relationship should be mutual in a sense that they shouldn't over rely on each other. And I feel like the European Union has paid attention in looking at the Mario Draghi report. I don't know if you ever read it. It's a PDF. I highly recommend it. I'll actually I'll actually put the link to it here in the chat. And so that report is very interesting. And so the European Union and many other countries within the bloc are creating their payment systems and trying to not use MasterCard or Visa too much for that.
What's the main point you're
Uh-huh.
trying to make here?
The
What's the
main point
main
that I'm
point
trying
you're
to make is that there's a resurgence in the European Union bloc trying to not over rely on the US or China.